GoLoud.
Welcome back to the Weekly Roast. How's it going, guys? How the hell are you? How are your hearts? And of course, how are your heads? Guys, what's going on? How are you doing? How have you been over the last 7 days since we last spoke? Guys, thank you so much to everybody for listening to the show. I really and truly appreciate it. Thank you so much to every individual who took the time out of your busy lives to send me a message to say how much you enjoyed the last show. I survived solely on compliments, so thank you truly to those of you who took the time. If you do enjoy the show, let us know about it. Send me a message on Instagram at @MeganMark. If you have ideas for things that you would like roasted and or reviewed, send me a message. We will take that into consideration. Today, I'm joined by my beautiful little suckling child, Kieran, who is nestled right between my two breasts, mauling my mammaries, and we're getting through the day side by side. Kieran, how are you doing? Good. Guys, look, we've done the mothers. It's now time for the fathers. Past, present, or future father-in-laws. It's their time to be roasted. Let's go.
Sorry if I'm whispering, my children are asleep. My friend's ex, and let me emphasize on the word ex, father-in-law, walked in on her as she was showering in her ex-boyfriend's house. He opened the door and stood there staring, and she, as best as she could with her two arms, was covering her chest and her down below. He got an instant horn. If you knew this man, he's so creepy. He rubbed it, made a little grunt, turned and closed the door. And it's safe to say she never returned to that house.
The instant horn. Just how instant can a horn be? Okay, it's completely insane. Walking in on somebody once in the bathroom, that happens. The instant horn followed by grunt is when you've descended into pervert territory. And there's no going back from that. I want to hear the grunt. Was it like a Rick Ross ad-lib? Oh? Or was it, what sort of... Or was it like a... Oh. Because that's what I'd imagine it. Instant horn is... What was he wearing? How light was the fabric of his trousers that the penis was so immediately visible? This isn't walking in on somebody in the bathrooms. This is just voyeurism. This is perversion. This is derangement levels of the Weekly Roast. And it's a great one to get started. On we go.
Met my fella's parents for the first time when I was 17, and we were all sat around, had dinner, sat around after that. His dad proceeded to tell me that I was a fine heifer of a young one because I had a decent milk bag coming in. And his uncle just sat there nodding and smiling. And needless to say, it was the first and last time I met his dad. And we broke up very shortly after that one.
A decent milk bag. As if they're eyeing up a Nissan Passat on CarZone. Do you know what I mean? Jesus, decent milk bag and that now. A decent milk bag coming in. That sounds like something Brian Friel would have included in one of his plays, but he thought it was too cartoonish even for a man like the Bird O'Donnell to say. Do you know what I mean? A milk bag sounds like something you'd strap to the undercarriage of a dairy cow if she was having trouble keeping her udders restrained during milking season.
A milk bag?
A milk bag. How's... She is a decent milk bag coming in. And the uncle, by the way, beside him just grunting. I'm up to see if there's anyone in the shower. Nice one, Eamon. You complete and utter perverts. This podcast, by the way, we're going to ease you into it. It doesn't bode well for Irish people. It doesn't portray us well to the wider world. And we have a couple of international contributors today. And it doesn't represent us, shall we say, well as a nation, albeit perhaps it does accurately represent who we really are. Next up, okay, I'm going to flip it. I want to bring you one that's, in my opinion, okay, in my opinion, this next one is actually quite cute. But I'll play it for you and let's hear what you think. On we go.
Hey Mark. On the father-in-law ones,
few years back, my mother-in-law asked me a very strange question. The question was, do I perform oral sex on my husband, her son? I nearly died. And she told me the reason she asked was because her husband, my father-in-law, wanted it to happen for them, and it hadn't before. She didn't know how to do it. There's an image I do not want, nor did I ever want, in my head.
There's something beautifully innocent about this, I think. Genuinely. I'm picturing the old couple from the Titanic, you know. I'm imagining the old man and woman from the opening segment of Up. Just two pensioners lying in bed on a Sunday night in matching jammies and nightcaps, you know. She blows out the little bedside lamp, because it's still one of those ones with the glass. He leans over and gently whispers,
Do you remember the time Deirdre came over with Liam for the barbecue last April when the weather was nice?
Yeah.
Do you remember I went down to the garage to get the ice lollies for everybody?
Yeah, vaguely.
Well, do you remember she was eating a Clippo in the garden?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
I think you should learn blowjobs.
Sorry?
Would it be like a fast course you'd be looking at, or could you do it all online?
I don't know.
Well, you can learn anything these days. Blowjobs, Spanish, emotions, you know. Maybe ask Deirdre.
I do think it's very sweet, the idea of a pensioner asking his wife, would she be interested in learning how to do a blowjob, and then the wife going, I know, I'll ask my daughter-in-law. Maybe if she's performed these on Eamon, you know? I think it's sweet. What would have happened if the daughter said, yes, actually, Dorothy, you're right. Now, would you like to fetch Clonakilty sausage from the fridge? And we'll do a little demonstration. I could say cucumber, but let's not be ambitious. Do you know? I never understood. Demonstration on cucumbers is unfair on men. You're just setting completely unrealistic body standards for men. Let's a froob would be a... Speaking of innocence... I probably shouldn't say this story, but I remember. Okay, so I have a friend in West Cork who owns a B&B. Okay, she's like a second mother, right? And long story short, back in my drinking days, I was doing a little solo sojourn around West Cork one time and sort of drinking my loaf off. Anyway, I couldn't get a room. There was no room at the inn. It was the August bank holiday of 2020, in the middle of COVID and staycations and all the rest. It was like a couple of years before the hotels decided to then gouge us repeatedly. Even though we showed them loyalty during the pandemic, they then just turned on us as a nation and decided to cannibalise their own countrymen. Nevertheless, I couldn't get anywhere to stay, and I rang up this B&B, and this woman just like sensed the desperation in my voice, and she was like, come on down to me, I'll sort you out. Her name was Margaret. Her and Jim, they own the Bethel Guest House in West Cork. They're legends, okay? I had an unbelievable time there. We became friends ever since. All the rest. I was in my apartment this is just before I moved out to Castleknock last year, and the phone rings on a Friday night. It's like 10 p.m, 10:30, and I go, who's that number? I do this weird thing. I don't save numbers in my phone, but I'll know the number. I have this weird numerical recall, Rain Man almost-esque ability to recall numbers. And I'm like, that's Margaret from West Cork. Why is she ringing me at 10:30 on a Friday night? She goes, hello, Mark. And I go, this accent, by the way, I'm so sorry, Margaret. I'm so sorry, people of West Cork. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm sorry. She goes, hello, Mark. I was like, yeah, Margaret, everything okay?
Oh, Mark, I'm so glad you answered. I'm beside myself. I go, what's wrong? She goes, well, you know the way I have a daughter, Kathleen. I'm like, yeah. Well, Mark, she went over to London yesterday for the weekend with the gals. I was like, okay. She was celebrating finishing her exams, right? Well, Mark, she went down to Brighton on the train to see a gig. And I was like, oh God, yeah, okay. And she goes, well, do you remember it was very stormy last night, very windy? And I was like, yeah. She goes, well, they got to the gig, and after getting there, they had to leave in a hurry to get the last train. I was like, oh God. So she was running to the station in the rain, and I was like, oh no. And you know the way it's dark? I'm like, get to the fucking point. Yes, come on, Margaret. I'm like, yes. And she goes, well, by the time they got onto the train, they got to London, she realised she'd lost her phone. Sorry? She's lost her phone. I don't know what to do. I was like, hold on a second here. And have you heard me, Mark? Yeah, oh, believe me, Margaret, I've heard it all at this stage. She's lost her phone. And I was like, okay, so I'm sorry, but why are you ringing me? And then she was like, well, I just thought, like, you used to live in London.
I'm like, okay. And she goes, so I just was wondering, maybe you might have heard something. I was like, no, like London is not that small. How well connected do you think I was, by the way? That I would somehow have heard about a missing phone on a tube from London to Brighton, or on a train from London to Brighton. Someone goes, Mark Megan, actually, do you know there was an iPhone 11 loss on the 9:45 to Gatwick Airport? It was a Gatwick Express that went on to Brighton. There was a phone found between the seats. Maybe Mark Megan will know whose phone this is. Absolutely bananas. Anyway, let's go.
So my partner 6 years proposed, and the dad wanted to see the ring, and the second we got in the door, he loves storing up dirty jokes, and he looks at the ring and he goes, suppose you have to ride the bike before you buy it. And I was like, great. And then this is the worst one. He was raving about this moisturiser for dry skin, and he had a massive bottle of it. God knows what else he used it for. And he wanted to put some in a travel bottle, and he was making a big mess. So I said, look, I'll hold the travel bottle, you pump it in. So he started to pump it in, and then he looks up at me and he goes, what does that remind you of? And then he winked, and I actually nearly got sick, and I passed him back the bottle and just left the room. So yeah, lots more where that came from.
What does that remind you of?
Brilliant. A geriatric pervert comparing the motion of lotion to an explosion of, let's be honest, seminal fluid. You know, Kieran, I was in a taxi on Friday night, right? It was actually Friday afternoon. And the news came in that Maggie Smith had died. Okay? And let's be honest, as we all know, a celebrity death for a taxi driver is like heroin, you know. It's the holy grail of idle chit chat. It is. That will set them up for the entire week. You know what I mean? It's up there with a terror attack or a mild change in the weather, you know? So I get into the taxi. I've barely got my belt on. Yeah, Maggie Smith died. Yeah, I did, yeah. Fucking shagging stuff altogether. She was 89 years of age. Shocking? I don't know. Very sad. Yes. An end of an era. Yeah. Very sad for those who knew her. Yes. But shocking. I didn't spit out my tea when I heard the news. Do you know what I mean? I didn't. Fucking robbery. Well, I don't. Would you have given her a dart? Would you have given her a dart yourself? Would I have given Maggie Smith a dart? I would have helped her on the dart, Tony. You've gone so quickly from mourning to horny. This is, some men are just incapable of communicating with other men unless there's a vagina in the between. The vagina is the conversational buffer for them to communicate. And then I was just like, no, Tony, that's not. Rest in peace. Let's go to Castleknock. And then he goes, that's the end of the good weather now anyway. I'm like, I don't even have the energy to say, well, what good weather? We didn't have. And he goes, that's the end of the good weather now. And I was like, yeah, suppose it is. He leans back. Sunny weather brings all the good-looking women out, doesn't it? Sorry? The women are the same throughout the year, Tony. Do you know? It's the dresses that you probably like. It's not it's the short skirts. It's the extra open buttons on the shirts. It's the, oh yeah, the sunny women. The sunny weather. The sunny weather gets all the good-looking women out everywhere you look, coming out of the cracks. Coming out of the cracks is coming out of offices, Tony. And buildings and houses and home. Do you know? Where, the way they say things like, where do they go hiding for the rest of the year? What? Where do they go hiding? I'm gravely concerned by your use of the word hiding, Tony. It's not like, also, we're not talking about seasonal produce like Wexford strawberries or existential despair in November. They don't just come out in the summer like fruit flies. Yeah, shocking though about Maggie Smith, in fairness now, she wasn't a bad actor. In fairness. How many Tony Awards have you won, Tony? Now, the time has come, my friends. It's the return of Mrs. Jolly's. For those of you unfamiliar, there are 32 episodes of the podcast for you to listen back on, where you will become more than acquainted with the illustrious, inimitable character that is Mrs. Jolly's. To put it quite simply, she is a woman who is a fan of getting her, as she likes to call them, jollies. That's it. She disappeared on us. She receded into the podcast wilderness for months on end. We were worried about her whereabouts and her well-being. She subsequently reared her head a week or two ago, and I have been sort of pleading and working on her slowly in order to get an interview or some sort of conversation going again. And out of the blue, then she appeared when I was asking for people to contribute to the show on Sunday, and she submitted a little edition. So welcome back to the podcast, Mrs. Jollies. Dear listener, I hope you do enjoy her return. And as I said at the beginning of the episode, if you have any suggestions on how the podcast should sound and or work and or subjects you'd like to see roasted, send me a DM on Instagram at Megan Mark. Mrs. Jollies, the floor is yours.
Mark. How the hell are you? I've actually missed our Sunday catch-ups. I didn't think I would have had anything for you this week because my father-in-law is dead. But then I seen your stories and that we could actually mention our ex-father-in-laws. So my ex, from many, many years ago, his father was extremely good looking, like hot. I often wished he'd actually turned out more like his father, but he's still a narcissistic prick. And yeah, glad to be rid of him. Anyway, back to his dad. There was one night, we were doing the business, and wasn't feeling it. Just, nothing was kind of happening. So he went down south, and the whole time he was down there, I imagined that it was his dad that was giving me my jollies. One of the best orgasms I think I ever had. But yeah, there you go. How's that one for you?
Thank you, Mrs. Jollies. I'm surprised the BBC haven't been in touch with you yet to see what your position would be on Hezbollah in the Lebanon. Do you know what I mean? Don't mention positions in Mrs. Jollies. This isn't really a roast of current and or former father-in-laws. This is sort of just a perverted anecdote about oral sex whilst imagining the face of your former father-in-law. I mean, also you mention going down south as if it's some sort of geographical expedition beneath the equator, Well, it probably does get warmer, says you, Kieran, am I right?
Hey.
Lads. Mrs. Jollies, jolly good to hear from you. On we go.
I can't believe I'm doing this, by the way. Oh my god. Okay, so I was living with my in-laws for 2 years while we were building our house, and I was taking my clean clothes off the clothes horse downstairs, and as you do, was walking up the stairs with them to our room at the time, and about 2 or 3 minutes later, hear a little knock on the door. Open it up to my father-in-law, even the fact that he picked it up. Oh my god. Standing there with my penny's tongue in hand, being like, well, this definitely isn't mine. And then I had to take it off him and just say thanks. Oh my god. Yeah. Oh god.
Okay, I'm glad you enjoyed it as much as you did. I think, you see, this is actually fine. I think depending on the context, do you know what? It's all about tone here. If he shows up and he's just like, oh, this definitely isn't mine, I don't think. Wonder what Sinead would think, do you know what I mean? That's absolutely fine. I mean, maybe the mature route would obviously be just not to mention it. Go, oh, sorry, you dropped this. Alternatively, if he comes up and he has them over his face like Spider-Man, then that's an issue. Do you know what I mean? And the tone of voice is everything. If he comes up and he's like, I think you dropped this. Oh, yeah, I think I did actually. Thanks, Craig. Why don't you try them on, just to make sure they're yours? I actually don't think so, but go on now, just try them on there. No, not over the jeans. Under the jeans, just to get a proper bit of purchase on the lips. Like, do you know what I mean? That's obviously really concerning. What would be worse for me, though, is if he was perfectly polite. He was like, oh, Cleena, how are you? Sorry, look, you dropped these. Is this yours? I think it is. And you go, yeah, it is. And then he hands you the thong and you think, this is fine. It's been above board, perfectly normal, okay interaction. And then as he leans over the doorway to pass you the thong, you just look up and in his nostrils, you can see a tiny little bit of green cotton caught in one of his nose hairs, okay? And because the tongue is green, and that's when the trouble starts, because for the rest of your life, you have no formal way of proving that he is a knicker sniffer, but deep down you know that he's been nosediving, nostril first, into the gusset of your jocks. Do you know? He's been snorting your smalls like a suburban anteater, a pervert. So, there you go. Why did you just throw them on there like a good... No, let's go.
We moved into a new house and we invited my husband's parents over to see the new house, and they usually have a bite to eat and a few drinks, and we were doing the kind of house tour, giving a bit of a walk around, and we got to our bedroom portion of the tour. And I just remember it so vividly. He was walking around the bedroom with his hands in his pockets, really taking in the room, looking around the ceiling, out the window. And he just came out with, "This is where all the writing happens, so." I just remember being so shocked and not knowing what the fuck to say. Just kind of like giggling and going like, "Yeah, guess you're right." And then to add to it, a couple of months later, my husband's brother came over and we were just chatting, and I kind of told him the story about what had happened when his dad had come over and what he'd said and how I was suitably creeped out. And I was shocked to hear that he said exactly the same thing to his wife when they were doing the tour of their house about 6 months prior. So not only did he think it was an appropriate thing to say, but he thought that this was obviously the best joke ever because he decided to use it again.
Oh, God. Okay. So with this one, I think it's the doing it twice. That's the end of the line. That's what's revealed him as a disturbing individual. I mean, if he does it once, I think you give him the benefit of the doubt and you go, look, that's a weird comment, but we'll allow it. If for the rest of the time that you know him, he's completely normal, I think you let him away with this, because it does frustrate me that we exist in a time where there is absolutely no room for anybody to make mistakes. Do you know? And I'm not talking about cancel culture to that degree, or I'm not doing the old middle-class white comedian going, "Oh, you can't say anything anymore." Well, you can't be racist. Do you know what I mean? It shouldn't be that difficult to just not be racist. I'm talking about, like, there is no room for human beings online and really offline to make any sort of mistakes. Like, do you remember after October the 7th and the tragedies that have occurred and atrocities that have occurred in Gaza subsequent to that, right? There's been rightful outrage and disgust and a universal global feeling of hopelessness and, anger and whatever at what's been going on and what the victims have been subjected to in Gaza. However, there was a complete and utter witch hunt for a while wherein people became more obsessed with finding out other people on social media where they were tripping up, where they were going wrong. "Oh my God, I can't believe you shared a video of yourself in the kitchen and in the background there's a bag from fucking Home Store and More. Did you not know that the owner of Home Store and More in 1994, business partner, was working in the holding company that's actually Israeli? You should be thrown off your platform." Like, you follow this person because they're really good at gardening, or they're excellent at baking treacle puddings, or applying makeup, or making jokes, or singing. Why do you expect them to all of a sudden have this, like, Amal Clooney-esque knowledge of human rights? And by the way, the multifaceted, like, things involved in... the standards that people are setting for others is so outrageous on the internet. And it's like, oh, somebody makes a mistake. Well, then they must be the worst person in the world. They must be like an absolute pariah. They are a freak. We should exile them from society. Rather than just going, "Oh, do you know what? They got that wrong. Yeah, they really had a howler in that situation. They got it wrong. They're a human being. They probably have 700 things also going on in their daily life." Oh my God. It is just... the stuff online at the moment is derangement levels, mon ami. Nevertheless, this is where the writing happens. Your father-in-law is a sex fiend. He clearly gets off on some element of, knowing this is where the magic happens. Let's go.
Okay, I've had to go into a different section of the house so that my husband obviously doesn't hear this, because I'm probably ended in divorce. But so my father-in-law loves to come in for Maria a cup of coffee, and the armchair I feed the baby at is right beside the motion rocking chair thing that you buy for the baby. And he loves to look at me and say, "Well, do you like sitting on that motion seat? Because I know you love a bit of vibration." And then stares at me intently, waiting for my answer. It just actually creeps the crap out of me. Like, sends shivers down my spine for the wrong reasons.
I feel like my reactions to all of these voice notes are going to be the same because they are all the same. Derangement. This is completely insane. He is perverted. What I think you should do with this scenario is just go, sorry, Donald, I don't understand. Can you explain that to me? Can you explain that to me? What do you mean? And then just like tease it out of him. What do you mean by that? Oh, I was just saying that because of the. No, I don't understand. Why would I enjoy that? What are you? And just like let him hang himself. Do you know what I mean? What do you mean by that? Oh, because I'd be sitting in the pressure and the gyration and the like. Is that what you mean? If so, why didn't you call me Rocky Balboa? Because of the rocking. That would have been, dang, 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 dang. Let's go. Guys, here we are. It is the final section, and due to my upcoming nuptials, of course, I have decided to include a little wedding section, and I think we're really going to be upping the wedding content over the next 2 or 3 months in the build-up to the big day. So, my friends, it's the wedding section. As always, if you're new to the show, listen back. There's 32 episodes or 31 episodes or so for you to get through. It is 31 episodes for you to get through. Thank you so much for your support on this journey, to use the worst word in the modern lexicon. Let's go.
Hey Mark, what's the crack? Love the podcast. So, weird one, father of the bride behaviour, was at a wedding a few years ago and comes to the speeches. Father of the bride is a pre-recorded speech to be played on video on a screen. So that was fine, watched that. Bit awkward, just like, like a dad figuring out Zoom in the middle of lockdown. Thing is, the father of the bride was there in person. Wasn't dead. Wasn't otherwise unable to attend. No, he was there watching himself give the speech. Apparently he just didn't like speaking in front of other people, so he did it beforehand so he could get a practice and, have outtakes and all that. But it's just weird because usually it's for someone who's passed on. They leave a little message and then you can say to the bride, I'm sure he's looking down on you and very proud of you. No, I could see him 2 tables across going ham on a plate of pavlova.
This is literally the definition of wanting to have your cake and eating it. He's literally having his cake, or pavlova, as the case may be, Mark, and eating it. Now, what I will say is this. I will not ridicule a man for his anxiety getting the better of him. If this is what that is, and it sounds pretty much like that, because to be honest, one of the reasons why I avoided doing live shows for basically my entire life as a comedian was because I just physically could not bring myself to get up on stage. And I was forever trying to think of like up there. I remember seeing the Tupac hologram at Coachella in 2014 and going, there you go, that's the answer. I can do a hologram sort of stand-up show. Anything to avoid, like a phobic behaviour. I am very familiar with phobic behaviours. So I do think that sounds like a man who is incredibly nervous, and the anxiety has presented too much of a roadblock in between him and being able to speak at his daughter's wedding, which I empathise with enormously because that must have been tough to endure. The fact that he's sitting back and enjoying the cake, and I hope, by the way, he's laughing at his own gags. I hope, because that's what I'd be doing, like, queuing people up. Watch this part. This part's fucking deadly. You know, like when you're showing someone a YouTube video or something that you found really funny, and you're sort of like looking at them as you look at their phone, you're like, I hope they laugh at the part that you know what I mean? So brilliant. I'm not going to ridicule the man, but it must have been hilarious to watch. Funnily enough, by the way, I think I shared something about this on my Instagram and somebody else messaged me and was like, oh my God, I was at this wedding. So yeah, there is a bit of culture collisions happening in the DMs. On we go, my friends.
Hi, Mark. I was at a wedding a couple of years ago, and the father of the groom actually got up and said, the usual speech, and then proceeded to inform us of how the bride and groom actually met and how they got together. So the father of the groom proceeded to say that his son came in from a night out and asked if so-and-so was their second cousin because they actually kissed them on said night out. Turns out they were, and they're currently, I think, nearly 10 years married at this stage. So to say that silenced the room was an understatement. And the father then proceeded to give a very detailed rundown of the family tree. So needless to say, many a drink was drank after that because nobody really knew what to say.
I mean, surely like once it's more than like fourth cousins, you're really playing with fire. Like any more than third cousins, and that's when you're giving birth to a bag of earlobes. Or just two bum cheeks with a mouth and eyebrows. Like that's, you're playing, like that is a lucky dip of limbs. You know, if you're entering in the second first cousin territory, like you're playing the lottery. You know, it could be you, but it could also be an amphibious swamp child with flippers for legs. You know, that's why the phrase is, you know, for something that's not easy forgotten, they have a phrase for that. It's called, it's like riding a bicycle. They don't say it's like riding your second cousin. Do you know? Thanks for the 3 elbows, Dad, and the nipples on my cheeks. but I'm glad you only have one side of the family to invite to the wedding reception. This is bananas. A bag of earlobes. You know, they have a dating app in Iceland. Here you are, little ADHD fun fact for my friends. In Iceland, there's a dating app that tells you if you're related. Because basically, Iceland is so small, and the population is such small. Brilliant, well said. But the population is tiny, so they have to have a dating app that flags up whether you're genetically related to the person that you're swiping right with. So, when are we going to Reykjavik, bae? Boy? Bae? Okay, on we go!
So I attended a very white middle-class English wedding last year.
Oh, God.
Where like 80% of the people there had clearly voted leave for Brexit. But anyway, was having a great time. Came to the dinner and it was time for the speeches. And the father of the bride, he opened his wedding speech by comparing his levels of happiness on this like beautiful day that his daughter was getting married to what he'd imagine a refugee would feel when they arrive at Dover. And then he made some other reference to like refugees running up hills or something. But at that point, I wasn't really listening because I wasn't really able to like process anything else. I was in such shock. But he thought his joke was hilarious. And everyone at the table that was at my table, we all just kind of tried not to catch each other's eye because it was really, really uncomfortable. But yeah, what a way to find out that your father-in-law is casual racist.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, if there's one thing that I hate, it's white middle class comedy, you know? I feel very strongly about that, as you can imagine, Kieran. Mm-hmm. Looking forward to doing episodes on ski trips, air fryers. Anyway, okay, this is bad. It's bad. It sounds like, again, if there was a weird mention once, you'd maybe forgive him and you go, this is a generational cognitive gap and it's an idiotic joke to make, but we'll just put it down to ignorance. And what did we say last week? And it's the word or it's the sentence of the week or the month. Don't attribute to malice what can be explained by ignorance. However, the fact that he says it a few times clearly shows that he has an agenda. That would be my perspective. Did I ever tell you, Kieran, I was at a wedding. I feel like it's been a long enough time now that I can talk about it. 2 years ago, I had to go to a wedding in Spain, right? And the best man was a Liverpudlian life coach. And you just like... I know. Sorry, this is probably me being whatever. But like, once you see the crossbody Louis Vuitton bag, I'm gone. That's when once you get the stench of aftershave from across the fucking pool, right? You just know it's going to be bad. The guy was using a clip-on microphone on his chest to record his own best man speech. So he could assumingly use it in #content at a later date. Like, you know it's going to be a howler. Anyway, your man gets up and like, bear in mind it's like 38 degrees. It's so insanely hot. And he effectively compared the marriage to like starting a business. You know, like, it was like the Al Pacino speech in Any Given Sunday, except you're in Porta Banús and the sportiest thing in the room is this guy's athlete's foot. Do you know what I mean? Like, so he starts off trying to get like, he's really like, but let's just say he's got lots of energy, you know, a very, very energetic approach. And he starts going for this ain't the dress rehearsal. The fucking curtains are up now, son. Look, all the punters are in. All the fucking punters are in. The house lights are dark. The stage is set. The auditorium is fucking yours. I remember thinking, this is a curious amount of theatre references for a man who probably thinks that being a thespian is a choice about your sexuality. Do you know what I mean? Like, he then, of course, does the animal thing, because life coaches, as we've discussed on this podcast before, life coaches and these gym guys, they need to compare men to animals, otherwise their brains collapse. It's how they process the world in bad animal analogies. If you're on the Serengeti, do you want to be a fucking lion or do you want to be a gazelle? Are they the two choices in this? Are they? Because I'll tell you something for nothing. The lion beats the gazelle in one-on-one armed fucking combat every time. Wait, did you just say armed combat? Are these animals now militarized? Like, you know, I thought we were on the Serengeti. If I'm on the Serengeti, I want to be a tourist, sitting on a jeep, on my honeymoon, going for a seaweed bath, back in the lodge, and drinking an overpriced sparkling water. I'd rather not be a feline mauling the carcass of a vulnerable antelope. Do you know what I mean? What has any of this got to do with the wedding? He's one of these guys, they have to just constant bad. A good marriage is like a fucking business plan. Is it? How? You also, mate, you downloaded a pyramid scheme as a PDF file and saved it to your girlfriend's MacBook. This isn't business. Do you know what I mean? You flog hair growth cream, which is about as effective for hair growth as Sunny Delight is for teeth whitening. Do you know what I mean? He then... I just fucking can't, man, with these life coaches. I know I always go after them, but they just drive me up the wall. Have you noticed the new spate of like guys who you really wouldn't want to be like friends with or associate with talk about the modern man? Young fucking lads these days, they've strayed so far. Men have strayed so far from what they used to be. You're literally wearing fake tan. How is that the modern working man has grown so far away from masculinity? Mate, your genes have cut off the circulation to your brain and you haven't had a unique thought since you sat the junior cert. Do you like, a real man is proud of his country. They always love the country as well. Once you see the flag, the national flag in anybody's bio, you're done. You're gone. That's when you're in trouble. A real man is proud of his country. You're wearing a bum bag, 4-inch running shorts and Valentino trainers. Do you think that's what Eamon de Valera was knocking around in? Do you think W.B. Yeats wrote The Lake Isle of Innisfree whilst wearing a Boohoo for Man tank top and off-white trainers? A small cabin built there, of clay and wattles made. Drove down in the Audi A6, got it on hire purchase. Do you know what I mean? On we fucking go.
So my father-in-law, during his speech to welcome me into the family, decided to auction off his 5 unmarried daughters. The auction went on for about 15 minutes. There was lots of bids made and everything. Mind you, I don't think any of them ended up actually getting married.
Okay, short and sweet. This is, again, like a Brian Friel play. This is Philadelphia, Here I Come. I mean, it's one of those ones where, do you ever get when you meet like an English person, and like most English people, they have a slight undercurrent of, condescension and patronise when they're looking at the Irish, and you're sort of like, look, we are really modern, we are a fully formed society. We have iPads now, in Ireland. We have traffic lights and smoking bans, look, there might be a very brief human auction after the desserts of the wedding, but with just a few leftover daughters, but that's it. Do you know what I mean? Focus on the smoking ban and gay marriage. Do you know what I mean? We're progressive. We are if you'd like to put an offer on Breed, okay, she'll keep you warm in the winter. It's €7 at least. Do you want to taste? Do you want to go up and, it's like whenever you meet an English person though, and they go, oh, you're Irish. I must admit, I love the Irishman. That used to drive me up the wall when I lived in London. I must admit. Why are you saying I must admit I love the Irish? Like it's a fucking guilty pleasure. Oh, I must admit I like the Irish. You'd be like, yeah, nice, mate. Yeah, I used to work with an Irishman. I wonder, did you know him? I highly doubt it, mate. Ireland is a massive place. We are an international hub. Absolutely not. Liam O'Shea, that's my neighbour. Damn. Thank you so much for listening to The Roast of Fathers-in-Law. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. It is, as you know, my favourite time of the week, sitting in this studio, talking to you, and I love so much hearing about where you listen to the show. So do let me know whenever you listen to it, wherever you listen to it, and what you think of it. I hope you have a great week. Look after yourselves. It's a busy time of the year. The seasons are changing. The weather is descending. I can feel the cloak of grey wrap itself around me, and I am not in the mood to be hugged by it yet. But look, We'll keep the chins up and we will survive. We will get through this together. Look after yourselves and take care. See you soon.